a charity is running a campaign to call for a change in the law. So I'm going to quote from the Electoral Commission. Let's say, in the run-up to the UK general election, a charity decided to call for a piece of legislation to be repealed in order to further its charitable purpose. That's something it's quite allowed to do. It organises large public meetings and places advertisements. The change is well known to be supported by some political parties and to be opposed by others. The charity carefully avoids drawing attention to the positions of different parties on this issue. But it is promoting a change to the law which is so closely and publicly associated with some parties that its activities could be reasonably be seen by others as intended to encourage voters to support parties that have said they'll repeal the legislation. You've gone to sleep, yeah? And so this is likely, the costs of this activity are likely to be regulated, quote, from the Electoral Commission. That's the degree of lack of clarity, and this is just one of four examples they give. So, unfortunately, this bill does restrict what charities can do. I mean, it's...
I was desperately trying to pull up that same briefing on my phone as Anne's more organised, she printed it out. Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear I wasn't texting someone. I mean, that's really important because that's the Electoral Commission, that's the body that would be in charge of implementing this law, and they are saying that the kinds of things that Neil just described, and I agree with him, shouldn't come within the regulation. The Electoral Commission is saying they would, and that's the problem. But this law has been missold, including by the sounds of it to Neil. The reason for that is that the definition that is being used has two big, it has these two really kind of sting in their tail sub-clauses to it. The first of which is that the first sting in the tail is that the clause 26 open bracket 3 close bracket, which says a course of conduct may constitute doing one of those things, i.e. be counted as election spending, even though it does not involve any express mention being made of the name of any party or candidate. So that's sting in the tail one. The second one, and this is clause 26 open bracket 3a close bracket. Further, in determining whether expenditure can reasonably be regarded as intended to promote or procure electoral success, it is immaterial, but it can reasonably be regarded as intended to have another effect as well. Now, what that means essentially is you don't have to mention the candidate or the party at all. You can go out of your way not to. And the reason you can be doing it can be to save the local hospital or promote the tackling of climate change. But if you are promoting a point of view, but is associated with some candidates and not with others, you're promoting a point of view which benefits them and doesn't. You know, if you're saying fox hunting should be brought back, and the local MP says it should, and the local opposition candidate says it shouldn't, and you're convincing people that it would be a good idea to agree with the local MP, then you're promoting their success, so you're caught, even though that's not what you want to do, you just want to bring back fox hunting.
It is where the dots and the commas are that make a difference with this, like with so much legislation. Can I ask the lady at the back with the purple top, please?
No one answered that guy's question about trade unions.
Oh, sorry, it won't in any way affect anyone's donations to political parties, so including trade unions. There are other bits of the bill in Part 3 which affect trade unions to do with lists of their members, which trade unions have concerns about in terms of those lists falling into the wrong hands and that being associated with blacklisting. But in terms of trade union donations to political parties, just like donations from any of us or donations from the banking industry or Lord Ashcroft, this law doesn't affect any of those.
Thank you for pointing that out.
I mean, just in your response to that question there, you said that charities and third sector organisations already can't campaign on overtly political issues. So, firstly, I'd like to know why the law needs to be changed in that case, if that's already in place. And secondly, you're obviously supporting this at the moment, so I'd like to get an understanding of why you think it's a good thing. Like, what is the good this is going to do? Can you explain that to me? I don't get it.
Questions in that. Can I take that quickly? Could I ask you to be brief? We'd like to get in as many questions as possible.
I'm supporting this because I think that it needs further clarity, actually, because as this meeting is proving, it's a complex area. I think that elections should be the great thing about democracy is actually speak and also listen. I think that it's important to recognise that, first of all, the point made about charities, they can and should campaign even during elections on policy issues. It's when they start supporting a specific candidate that that's what the legislation says. The coverage of the Charities Act and several Charities Act is all about what they are allowed to do in their normal time, from the moment they get up and the moment they go to bed, whether there's an election or not. And that's what the Charities Act really governs. And if you deal with the Charities Commission, you'll know that that is the case, because they are effectively the guardians of what a charity can and can't do, and they also decide whether a charity can be a charity or not. What we are moving into here is making sure there is more transparency about where money comes from and where campaigning sort of takes a shape. And can I just say this? If you want to campaign for a specific party, then you can do so, but you've simply got to make sure that's properly registered and transparent. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Can I perhaps try to answer a bit of that question myself? What the legislation is for? If I can put it in a metaphor terms, I think there is a nut here. It may be the ghost of a nut, it may be a future nut, it may be the risk of a nut, and that this bill is a sledgehammer designed to crack it. Yes, there is an issue about transparency, and yes, we want to keep politics. We want to know what is happening. We don't argue about that. David made that point very clearly. We want to make sure that we have democracy. The question is how to get it, and this particular bill is so badly drafted and so badly worded that it is bringing in absolutely everything with it. And some of the discussions that the government has had has actually been more about what colour to paint the sledgehammer rather than talking about how to get rid of the sledgehammer. Did that help in the slightest?
No, not really.
No. Apologies. I think we might have to move on and ask another question. Can I ask the gentleman sitting down at the back there?
Yeah, I'm chair of a charity, a local charity, that run the children's centres across the whole of the Stroud area. And the one bit I don't understand is, in this legislation, is if a political party put forward that there's going to be significant cuts because we rely on our money from public funds, where does that leave us if we don't like that part and we want to say something about it and make a comment about it?
That's an excellent question. Can we take another question? Can we take the gentleman over there in the blue jumper? Yes.
In order to ask my question, I just have to make a comment first of all. What we take as accepted by what has been said so far. This Act has gone through the House of Commons, is that correct?
That's right.
And it's gone through in the form it's in at the moment. This form?
The bill, yes, the bill has been passed with some amendments from the government in the House of Commons to the House of Lords, and it is currently finishing a stage in the House of Lords where they discuss bits of it in more detail.
Sure. Well, the first part of the Act I don't think anyone has any problem with, because it deals with what Neil has been talking about. It's the second part of the Act that is totally unclear and is a threat to democracy. That's what we're talking about. It's a threat to democracy. I want to read a very short Barrister's opinion on this Act as it is at the moment. Chilling effect on freedom of expression by putting small organisations and their trustees in fear of criminal penalty if they speak out on matters of public interest and concern with a view to affecting the law. That is what a barrister has said about it.
That's Rosamund McCarthy, I think.
I don't think it was. No, it was Helen Mayfield, I think. Anyway, she's a QC, so I presume she knows what she's talking about. I'm also a solicitor, and I've read this thing, and it doesn't make sense. And it has a lot of things in it which are unclear. So my question is, why is the Conservative Party and the government supporting something which is quite clearly interfering with democracy? Why are they?
One which is about interfering with democracy from a legal point of view. We have another which is about the cuts that charities are facing here. Neil, do you want to
Can we have the other way round this time? Because you're going from Neil all the time, so why not that end start?
Yeah, very true. David, do you want to? I'm going to be on that first.
So the first question about campaigning against cuts to children's centres, well, I mean, it's just one of the flaws with this is it's kind of up to the candidates. If all the parties agreed, if there was total consensus across all the political parties that the children's centres should be cut, then you'd be fine to campaign as much as you wanted because you wouldn't be enhancing any candidate's position. If, assuming though, hopefully from your point of view, there were some candidates who were campaigning against the cuts, then you would fall within the scope of this regulation, there's no doubt about it, because you'd be enhancing the position of those candidates who thought that it was a bad idea to cut children's centres. Now, you'd be hit therefore in two ways. The first thing you'd have to think about is whether you were hitting the registration threshold. So, totting up all the expenses that anyone getting involved with the campaign was accruing and registering with the Electoral Commission and submitting reports. So there'd be a huge level of bureaucracy there for you that would kick in if you were spending more than £5,000. And remember, this is over the course of a year and it includes pretty much all the costs you could possibly incur, including staff costs, meetings like this, any posters you put up, etc.
It wasn't so much the cost, I can't ever see we would hit those costs.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that they are publicly funded. It's whether there's an impact we've spoken out to whichever party did now. Really.
Not in terms of this law then, no. But I wouldn't be so sure you wouldn't hit those costs because it just so much is counted, particularly staff costs. And you would have to be in a position to demonstrate that you hadn't hit those costs, and your trustees would need to be satisfied that you weren't, otherwise they'd be potentially facing criminal sanctions. Now, the limit is £5,000 in England. In Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, it's down to £2,500. And remember, this is over the course of a year. So if a local charity in Northern Ireland wants to just pay for a few people to come down to London to attend a rally or something, they're being caught. And then, obviously, yes, because you'd be campaigning just within one constituency. And I can imagine a campaign to save children's centres could be something that got quite a few people involved. You know, but you'd be working in coalition with other organisations, and all their spending would be being counted as well. You've got a cap on what you're allowed to spend at £10,000 as well, so there's that constituency limit as well. The second question about what is this for? I think that's one for Neil, really, isn't it?
The question about whether you were...
I'm sorry, can the speakers please stand?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Just juggling my notes, oh dear. Okay, so the question about what it's for...
Sorry, I didn't say what it's for. I said, why is the government supporting an act?
Okay, I dropped the note of your question.
So I wouldn't mind you all answering it. Why do you think the government is supporting an act which is totally unclear in the second part of it?
Because they can't win a clean election.
Personally, I think it's because ministers want a quiet life. And I think... And seriously, I mean, here's Neil giving it, having an easy evening. And you can see why MPs...
Used to it.
You can see why ministers would want to go out live to stop and to block democratic campaigning. And I think it's really misguided. I think it's just gone far too far. In terms of what you do if you're at a children's centre and want to campaign against cuts to children's centre, there is a bit of small print in the Electoral Commission. And I suggest you can download this from the Electoral Commission website. And so, if you're campaigning on a policy issue which is subsequently adopted, it can be okay if you have a long-term established record of campaigning on the issue to further your charitable purposes. So for goodness sake, get started now, before the election. And then, if one of the parties adopts your policy or comes out against it, just before the election, it's okay so long as you don't change anything. If you say, Neil's supporting us, or whatever, you're dead, you're toast. Then you've got to, sorry, I exaggerate, you're not dead. But you're then regulated and you have to register. Or you might have to, if the Electoral Commission is not clear. And you will be okay for about 40% of the year. No, sorry, 60% of the year. These bills only count for about 40% of the year, because they're for the